Entry 1. The abyssal plain. Coordinates: approximately 13,000 feet below sea level. Atmosphere: staggeringly heavy, roughly 580 times the pressure of a disappointing conversation with your boss. Why it works. At this depth, the only creatures you will encounter are translucent sea cucumbers and tripod fish. They do not need a ride to the airport. They do not need you to just take a quick look at their resume. They are busy surviving the crushing weight of the literal ocean, a hobby you should consider adopting. Found etched into the side of a rusted oxygen tank recovered from the Mariana Trench. The handwriting was surprisingly calm, though the ink appears to be bioluminescent squid vomit. Coordinates: the oldest part of the woods where the GPS signal goes to die. Atmosphere: smells like wet tannins and damp history. Why it works. The sound of the rain hitting the bark creates a natural do not disturb sign. If someone manages to find you and asks if you can hop on a quick call, you are legally allowed to pretend you are a wood nymph who has forgotten the concept of English. Discovered, written on the back of a missing person flyer. The person wasn't actually missing. They had just reached their limit with group texts and moved into the timber. Entry 3. The event horizon of a Schwarzschild black hole. Atmosphere: spaghettified. Why it works. Due to gravitational time dilation, even if someone sent you a "can you do me a small favor" text just as you crossed the horizon, the message would take an infinite amount of time to reach your device from the perspective of an outside observer. You are, for all intents and purposes, permanently out of office. Transmitted via a series of rhythmic radio bursts that, when decoded, translated entirely to the phrase, "I'm not coming in on Saturday," repeated for 3 billion years. Entry 4. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault. The Frozen Realm. Coordinates: Longyearbyen, Norway, deep inside a sandstone mountain. Atmosphere: very crisp, was discovered by a technician who noted that the author seemed unusually well rested for a dead person. Entry 5. The center of a sensory deprivation tank filled with lukewarm malt vinegar. Coordinates: a basement in a part of town that smells like fish and chips. Atmosphere: pungent and buoyant. Why it works: the vinegar ensures that no one wants to get close enough to speak to you. You are a floating, human-sized pickle. You are curing. One does not ask a pickle for a favor. One simply waits for the pickle to be ready, which, in your case, is never. A damp, salt-stained postcard mailed from a basement that technically does not exist on any Munich, shouted into a high-end weather balloon by a man who was seen walking into the storm, carrying nothing but a lawn chair and a look of profound relief. iPal map. It arrived smelling faintly of batter and liberation. A parting map maker's quote: "The best way to avoid being asked for a hand is to make sure your hands are already full of things that look heavy, wet, or potentially contagious." A man carrying a bucket of live eels is rarely asked to help with the dishes. Entry 6. The eye of a stationary hurricane. Coordinates: the precise, terrifying center of a storm that has decided to take a nap over a deserted island. Atmosphere: eerily calm, with a ceiling of swirling, screaming clouds. Why it works: even if your mother-in-law manages to track you down, her voice will be shredded by 150 miles per hour winds before she can ask you to explain how to use the cloud again. Here, you are the master of a very small, temporary kingdom of debris. It is very peaceful if you don't look up. Entry 7. A disused limestone quarry, bottom level. Coordinates: 3 miles past the no trespassing sign that has a bullet hole through the O. Atmosphere: flat, gray, and profoundly indifferent. Why it works: limestone absorbs sound. You can scream, "I am not checking my Slack notifications," and the rock will simply swallow the vibration and offer nothing in return. It is the architectural equivalent of "seen at 4:12 p.m. with no reply." Found carved into a slab of rock in a font so boring that 3 separate surveyors walked right past atmosphere, a buoy bobbing in the Atlantic where the prime meridian meets the equator. Why it works. You are at the coordinates where digital data goes when it has no valid location. You are a 404 not found in human form. You are not ignoring the request for a volunteer baker. You simply do not exist in the database of the living. Recovered from a corrupted Excel spreadsheet that achieved sentience and decided to delete itself from the physical plane. A selection from The Hermit's Guide to Camouflage, found tucked inside a hollowed-out loaf of bread. If you stand very still in a room painted gray, the people who need things will all go away. Be as dull as a pebble, as blank as a sheet, and no one will ask you to move your own feet. The trick to a life that is quiet and free is to look like a thing no one wishes to be. Found on a crumpled piece of sheet music titled Symphony Number 5 in I Am Not Answering My Phone. The ominously helpful advice for the overcommitted. If someone asks you for a minute of your time, tell them you've traded all your minutes to a crow for a handful of shiny buttons and a secret. Then hiss softly. It is very difficult to ask a hissing person to join a committee. Entry 10. The inside of a large professional tuba during a rest. Coordinates. Second row of the brass section, mid-symphony. Atmosphere. Polished brass and the faint, humid scent of spit valves. Why it works. While the orchestra is playing the violin solo, you are curled inside the bell of the tuba. It is a golden, resonant womb. No one can ask you to hop on a quick Zoom, because any sound they make will be amplified into a terrifying, brassy honk. You are protected by the sanctity of art and the physical impossibility of being perceived. Found on a crumpled piece of sheet music titled Symphony Number 5 in I Am Not Answering My Phone. The notes were replaced with small drawings of a person taking a nap. Entry 11. A satellite that has lost its orbit. Coordinates. Tumbling slowly through the exosphere. Atmosphere. A perfect, silent vacuum. Why it works. You are traveling at 17,000 miles per hour. Even if a coworker catches your eye through the reinforced glass, you are moving too fast for them to finish the sentence. atmosphere, dry, ancient, and smelling of taxidermy chemicals. Why it works. If you stand perfectly still, people will assume you are part of the exhibit. You are modern anxiety, a specimen. Visitors will look at you with pity and awe, but they will never ask you to help them move their refrigerator. To them, you have been dead for 65 million years. You are finally caught up on your rest. A Proverbs from the Manual for the Vanished. If you cannot find a place to hide, become a place that people want to avoid. A man standing in a public park, slowly eating a raw onion like an apple, is a man who will never be asked to be a groomsman. The ominously uplifting reflection. You are not antisocial. You are a finite resource. The sun does not shine on every planet in the galaxy at once. It picks its favorites and lets the rest freeze in the dark. Be the sun